you, Vijay.
Yeah. A very good evening to everyone on this virtual CPE meeting on Management Accounting Insights, System Audit, Top Management Perspective. And I would like to welcome C. Manish Bansal, the chairman of the Bhatinda branch of the NIRC of ICI, for the welcome address for welcome address on this virtual CPE meeting on Management Accounting Insights, System Audit and Top Management Perspective. So I welcome Manish Bansal ji for this welcome address.
Thank you, Mr. Vijay. Thank you. Very warm good evening to all. And I welcome the galaxy of the CA professions who have joined this webinar. First of all, I would like to thank you all for taking and sparing out their time to join this meeting. I especially welcome our the guest mentors, learned speakers who have spared out their time for today. We have among us Dr. Vinay Kumar Saini ji will be giving the keynote address. Then we have among us CA Paramjit Khanna ji, and definitely this program, which is the hot topic for the day, as this technology has made possible for all of us, where the around 1,000 chartered accountants have connected in this webinar. So is the equal importance of the systems audit. And with the learned members like CA Paramjit Khanna ji and Vijay Kumar Saini ji, we are definitely hopeful that we'll be more delightful, enlightened today by the end of this seminar. And I also welcome Amit ji and Gyan ji from this CMA committee along with the technical support staff. Thank you. Over to you, Vijay ji.
Thank you, Manish Bansal ji, for this welcome address. Now, I would like to share the brief profile of Vinay Kumar Saini ji. So, Dr. Vinay Kumar Saini ji has a more than 18 years of experience in software development, information security, training, research, and consultancy. He holds the BTech in Computer Science Engineering and MTech in Information Technology and PhD in Computer Science and Engineering Blockchain. He has qualified CISA exam and is Wipro and Infosys certified faculty also. He has published many research papers in journals, proceedings of international and national conferences. He has delivered many guest lectures on various information technology, risk management, IT security, IS auditing related concept in leading institutions like CS Sri Lanka, IEI, ICAI, RDIAS, TIPS, and many more across India and abroad. So I welcome Dr. Vinay Kumar Saini ji on behalf of Institute of Chartered Accountants of India and on behalf of Committee on Management Accounting. So welcome, sir, in this virtual CP meeting of ICAI on behalf of Committee of Management Accounting of Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Vijay ji. Thank you very much. So, good evening to all of you. It's been a great day. As I can see, so many of you are gathered together today to have an interaction and share ideas and opinions. Being a keynote speaker, I think it's a great responsibility to really abstract perspective to the event. And I appreciate the efforts of Bhatinda branch and all the dignitaries and the organizing committee members and of course the institute for arranging such events and interactive sessions. Good evening to all of you. I'm Dr. Vinay Kumar Saini. Well, if you look at system audit, the topic like management accounting, system audit, top management perspective, we need to understand that systems have evolved over the years, right? Right from the time when accounting was considered as a practice, a process where we have to record our data transactions on books, right? From manual systems to digital systems, there has been a lot of transformation. And if we observe, things have started from first we used to store the data in the form of files. Then we felt like we need more better functionalities for processing, analyzing, updation of data. So we moved to databases, right? And databases are definitely one of the most popular technology when it comes to data management and analysis. But that was not the end, right? And there was a change in the demand in the market. We saw emergence of concepts like data warehouses and then big data and whatnot. So point is, data is a key asset for any organization, and control perspectives, management perspectives, and of course, security perspective around that data is very important. And if you see, accounting, which was just recording the data, is not going to address much of the purpose. If you are thinking that accounting is just about recording the data and keeping the data as a reference data which can be used later on whenever if you want to look at that data, no, it's not going to serve the purpose. Now in today's competitive world, we have to be more proactive. We have to look at data as asset which can be used to transform the business by various different kind of means like data analytics, business intelligence. So these are some of the emerging areas which are really creating a lot of professional opportunities for practitioners worldwide. So if we focus on the latest trends in accounting domain, so there are 5 major transformations which we are experiencing nowadays. First is the use of data analytics, where we can process and analyze the data, and we can project our performances, or we can identify some of the gaps, loopholes which are there in our existing processes, so that we can solve the problem and we can upgrade our system. This is first perspective, like focus on data analytics. Second emerging trend is automation and AI, where we can analyze our accounting operations and we can identify which are the repetitive operations and activities. And if we can create some kind of robotic process, and I'm quite sure you might have heard about this term, robotic process automation. So what we can do is we can program that repetitive operation so that we can perform a lot more processing in less time. And of course, we can even enhance the capability of our computing and processing if we apply artificial intelligence. So means accounting would be a lot more faster, a lot more effective, and it can also handle some complex business logics, right? When it comes to AI, we can program and put some complex logic of accounting process in our program so that all those things can be done automatically. If you see, if we have human based operations, there is possibility of human error. But if we define the programs which can perform those tasks in an automated manner, we can reduce the error up to a significant, we can minimize the error, and perhaps we can have zero error processing if we have proper testing of the systems. So that's the second trend, that automation AI is transforming accounting like anything. Then we know that as businesses are growing, the storage capacity is a very big challenge. So there comes the cloud computing and cloud-based accounting, where we can have anytime, anywhere kind of accounting operations with any kind of devices. So that can really again take our accounting operations or processes to a next level, where we have more flexibility and more availability. Like you don't have to have a system up and running when you are doing some operation, maybe at midnight or maybe some awkward time. So if you have a cloud-based system that is available round the clock at any time, any place, and you can perform your accounting operations or whatever operations related to accounting are there. Then the fourth major technological shift which is being experienced nowadays is accounting can be outsourced, right? So if you feel like you are dealing with a very complex process, let's say you are an expert or your client is an expert in, say, manufacturing, and they feel like they have to handle multiple units across a country, or maybe some units are abroad also. So in that scenario, accounting might not be a easy thing to do in-house, right? You may feel like if we are trying to have an accounting of such a complex system, which is distributed across so many geographical areas, it may take a lot of time, a lot of resources are required, and of course errors and fraudulent practices can creep in, because the system is so widely distributed that it's very hard to monitor and control. So keeping that thing in perspective, outsourcing is again a new thing that has been coming up, and accounting process outsourcing is a major transformation which accounting domain is facing. And there are a lot of specialized firms, and I think it's a great opportunity for a CA firm also, that being a good service provider in this domain, like accounting outsourcing services. So you may have a lot of opportunities in that domain also. And the last but not the least, the fifth serious technical transformation which is happening in accounting is the blockchain. And I hope you all might have heard about this term, blockchain. Blockchain is a kind of system where you can have a transparent processing of transaction, transparent storage of transaction, and there is the ability of immutability, means you cannot alter the transaction or the data once the transaction has taken place. So a lot of things are happening since the days when we used to record the transactions and the accounting was on manual systems. Now we have fully digitized systems, and with a lot of abilities of data analytics, AI, cloud computing, and blockchain. So in a nutshell, what are the takeaways? I think we need to understand that change is the only constant thing in the world. So we have to adopt these changes. We have to adapt to these changes so that our skills, our services are required in the market, and we can tap all the available opportunities which are there in the market. So in a nutshell, I think it's high time that we should start upgrading our skills. We start exploring all these technologies and start practicing these things so that we gain a lot of knowledge and expertise wherein we can tap the markets and we can deliver our services. I must appreciate the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. They have been quite proactive in handling and creating competent workflows and professionals so that we can tap these professional opportunities. And there have been so many courses which have been floated, specialized courses, professional courses, like there is information system auditing course, there is forensic accounting and fraud detection course, all these, and there are specialized courses in blockchain and many more. So it's a high time that we start exploring all those skill sets which can really add value to our profession, right? And there is a lot of opportunities. You pick anything, right? Let's say compliances. So there are compliances related to your income tax, your GST, and whatnot. Then there are compliances related to security, data privacy. All these are IT-based audits which you can take up, right? So GDPR, ISO audits are there. Then you have this PCI DSS, which is basically e-commerce compliance requirement, which is high-profile assignments, right? So these all are professional opportunities, high-value professional opportunities which you can take up, and you can really improve the capabilities of your firm. Beside this, IS auditing is not a small domain, and it's not only limited to accounting. There are so many other perspectives which you can look for. For example, IT asset management, right? Then software hardware license management. Then you have security audits. Then you have data center audits. Then you have migration audits. Then you have business continuity management audits. Then you have compliance audits. So there is so many things that are there. And considering the amount of opportunities available, let me tell you one thing. There is a simple philosophy which I always follow. Your old clients, your existing clients are more valuable than your potential new clients, right? So you pick your existing clients and have interaction with them, what transformation they are going through, and what their future plans are. I'm quite sure you can help your existing clients with a lot of add-on things, like you can offer them consultancy in terms of IT asset management, because they might be looking for technological upgradations like RPA, or maybe cloud computing, or maybe your blockchain, and many more, right? And beside that, you can help your existing clients in handling their security operations, right? Defining audit charter, or maybe setting up internal audit functions. So there are a hell lot of opportunities which are there. The only thing is that we need to maintain a strong skill set with us so that we can offer quality services. And beside that, I think we must focus on where we stand in the world, right? And we should try to pick up all the opportunities which are available. If you go by the statistics, 80 to 90% of the organization, if you go and check out, would be small organizations. If you check the scale of the business worldwide, 80 to 90% organizations, business organizations, fall in the category of small and medium-sized organizations. So just imagine how much opportunities are available. Besides this, if you see from top management perspective, there are best practice frameworks like your COVID framework and many other frameworks, which you can take up as a specialized skill, and you can avail more and more opportunities like process assurance, then service delivery assurance and compliance assurance, risk management consultancy and risk management audits. These are again high profile assignments, and of course, and these are not only limited to top firms, they are applicable to even small and medium sized firms as well. So there is no shortage of any opportunity. So it's time that we should take up all such technical transformations that are happening around us in the systems, in the accounting domain, and try to upgrade our skills so that we can tap on these opportunities and we can excel and we can perform or deliver better services to our potential customers. I think this is all from my side, and I hope that today's session is going to be quite an exciting session. And I convey my best wishes to CA Paramjit Khanna sir, the expert for today. He'll be taking up this section further, and he'll be sharing a lot of opinions and all the exciting stuff that you can take up and can apply in your professional practice. Thank you all. Thank you very much. I think you're on mute. Please check.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hello, I am audible now?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so thank you, Dr. Vinay Kumar Saini sir, for this keynote address on this CPE meeting organized by CMA committee of Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. So now I welcome our today's eminent speaker, CA Paramjit Khanna sir. So I would like to briefly introduce him. Shri Paramjit Khanna ji is a practicing chartered accountant for the last several decades. He did graduation in BCom honors from Sri Ram College of Commerce in 1976 and also acquired his LLB degree in 1982. Shri Khanna has been a visiting faculty for teaching CA final students with ICAI New Delhi, and also takes lectures at the workshops organized by CBSE, CAG and similar government departments. He has been the visiting faculty at Direct Taxes Regional Training Institute at Delhi and primarily is in training for income tax officials. He is also empaneled with All India Radio and regular commentator on tax related issues from time to time. So I welcome Khanna sir on this important virtual CPE meeting organized by CMA Committee of Institute of Chartered Accountants of India as an eminent speaker of today's virtual CPE meeting. So welcome sir for this important virtual CPE meeting on behalf of Institute of Chartered Accountants of India.
Thank you. Thank you, Vijay, for your kind words and introduction. It's a real joy for me to come and make this presentation on systems audit. The Institute is doing a wonderful job by gearing up the members from time to time and upgrading their soft skills to meet the challenges. Like just now, we heard Dr. Vinay talk about the pragmatic changes which are coming forward, and the profession is naturally turning around. If the basic manner of accounting and recording of financial data is undergoing a sea change, then automatically it would, as a corollary, would conclude that the manner of checking such data would also become undergo a sea change. But I must also say that everything is not automated as on date. My mind goes out to those CA students who used to write the exam even when the calculator was not allowed in the CA examinations. I mean, we had to work out in the exams without a calculator. And then we did pass the exam at that time. Today, even the calculator is allowed. Today, you can't think of a chartered accountant's office without a calculator. I belong to a profession for that era where I inherited my father's practice. He was a chartered accountant also. And he would never use a calculator at that time because there was no calculator. So that is how the journey of accountancy has traveled from manual recording to electronic recording. Today you want to make a payment, you always do it electronically. So therefore everything is working on a system. Now therefore this brings us to the main topic at hand today. We are talking about systems audit. A systems audit has to be understood in the right perspective without any touch of electronic or kind of automation. A system audit has existed even before the introduction of data processing, even before the data was electronically started getting processed, or even before the computers were introduced, even probably when it was done in a manual manner, even then the systems audit was in existence. And therefore let us start with systems audit of that era. I may sound very archaeologically vague or but this is the grassroots level from where we must address the issue. We must look at the word a systems audit. What is a systems audit? A systems audit is a phrase which is comprised of two words. One, the systems, and second, an audit. So let us understand what do you mean by the word systems. To my mind, systems would be just a set of attributes or variables which are bound by a common regulation or law which binds them together. Therefore, we could have a lot of systems where some rule is binding the members or the sets to that subset. For example, I mean, I'm sounding very abstract. Take an example like a solar system. Now we have a solar system which is governing, lot of gravitational pull is there. So there is a law of gravity which binds the heavenly bodies. Now if any heavenly body violates the gravitational law, what happens to that body? That body becomes a meteor. It is thrown out of the system. Similarly, your human body also contains a lot of systems. And in that sense, we must understand the basic concept of a system. You have a nervous system, you have a cardiac system, you have a digestive system. So if anywhere the system collapses or a system falls down, then the body falls down. Recently, for the last 2 years, probably 21 months, we have been struggling with the COVID pandemic. The COVID pandemic has done nothing but upset our biological systems. Therefore, it has made us prove that there is a system. Now that is the concept of a system. Now let us leave the word system and come to the word audit. What does the word audit mean now? Audit is derived from the word audier. Audier means to listen, to hear, to understand. Why? Why do you need to audier? You need to audier because you have to pass an opinion or express some degree of satisfaction or a lack of satisfaction on some set of policies or procedures. That is an audit. Now, when you were to combine both the words system audit, definitely we have a wonderful concept of a system audit. A system audit would be looking at the set of procedures and policies ingrained into a system or interrelated by some cardinal principles of law, which would make us express an opinion on the systems, whether they are conducive to the management policies or not. Why would you carry out a systems audit? A systems audit, ladies and gentlemen, is basically to get the satisfaction that things are in order. Management has got some goals. Now, this session which I'm addressing is to look at systems audit from a top management's perspective. Remember, a top management is concerned with the achievement of the policies and the procedures on overall basis as well as on a micro basis. So if you were to react with some top management officials, let us simulate a board meeting. Let us say we are all sitting in a board meeting today and we are having the top management over there and they're considering all the data supplied by the statutory auditor. Now, who is a statutory auditor? A statutory auditor is a financial auditor. He has expressed an opinion on the financial statements prepared by the company's systems. Those systems which have been running to produce the financial data, and he has carried out his checks. And that financial auditor is called a statutory auditor. Why? Because the Companies Act or the statute is prescribing a financial audit. Just remember, the statute does not prescribe a systems audit. Then who prescribes a systems audit? The circumstances prescribe a system audit. Now we come back to the board meeting. Now you're sitting in the board meeting and you're having the audit committee and you're having everybody there and they're all discussing the statutory auditor's report. The statutory auditor report is pointing out certain pitfalls, some disasters. So there is an action taken report prepared by the CEO or the CFO or whoever the person responsible is there, or director of finance. He prepares a report which is known as an action taken report. What does an action taken report would have a reason to fall out from the statutory auditor's report? Let me at this moment of time pause and look at the statutory auditor's report. What does the statutory auditor report frame under the Companies Act? What does it talk about? The statutory auditor has got a prescribed format, a watertight compartment. He absolves himself of his responsibility totally for fraud, risk, error, etc. Look at the language he uses. Our objectives are to obtain reasonable assurance about whether the financial statements as a whole are free from material misstatement, whether due to fraud or error, and to issue an auditor's report that includes our opinion. Reasonable assurance is a high level of assurance, but is not a guarantee that an audit conducted in accordance with the SAS will always detect a material misstatement when it exists. Misstatements can arise from fraud or error and are considered material if individually or in the aggregate they could reasonably expected to influence the economic decision of users taken on the basis of these financial statements. So there you are. The statutory auditor has signed the audit report and he has walked out of the boardroom. What does the management do? Today, there is a list of situations where business entities who have got sound financial practices, they have been duly audited a number of times, multiple of times, periodically throughout the year, and such institutions or bodies or business houses, they have collapsed. Why have they collapsed? Has anybody examined that? Are you trying to say that you can stretch the role of the financial auditor to include the systems auditor? Of course, only for the limited purpose of reaching a reasonable assurance of the accuracy of the accounts and the authenticity of the data. Beyond that, the financial auditor is not responsible under the law. Therefore, a statutory auditor cannot be stretched to include the gravity of situations which may arise out of his findings. He's going to say he's not happy with the internal control system. He has a right to say that. It is his statutory right. And when he makes out a report, it becomes a statutory report. He can say that in respect of purchases, I'm not happy. In respect of sales, I'm not happy. In respect of cash operations, I'm not happy. And he makes his qualifications and he quits. His job is over. He collects his statutory audit fees and now the management, the top management has to look at the perspective. And here, my friends, look at the top management. Try to put yourself into the shoes of the top management. The top management will say, look, Mr. Statutory Auditor, can you do this job for us? And what does the statutory auditor reply? Anybody's guess? He takes the rigors of Section 144 of the Companies Act 2013. And when you look at Section 144, it says that a statutory auditor cannot do the following activities. Inter alia, those activities, I'm not going to teach you the Companies Act today because that's not my area for the subject for today. But if you were to look at Section 144, it is a bar, it is a limitation, it binds the limited, it reduces the scope of the statutory auditor from framing an opinion or doing these kind of activities. Now, if you have a look at Section 144, it has a long list, and it talks about management consultancy. So many things are spelled out as good as saying systems audit. So therefore, 144 casts a reservation that the negative points or the disaster management issues which are risen on the table of the top management, that cannot be fulfilled by the statutory auditor. So therefore, you need somebody else. Now, who that somebody else is? Of course, I would also mention that there are internal audits which are prescribed under the Companies Act, under 138, where the central government has got certain norms of categories. That look, if your turnover is so much, your bank loans are so much, then internal audit is a must. So therefore, internal audit can be a supposition that where you can work out. But looking at 138 or 144, or looking at the statutory auditor's reservations, have you ever seen a qualified statutory auditor's report? In a financial audit, he qualifies certain things. I'm not happy. So the moment he says I'm not happy, it brings us back to the point of systems audit. And therefore, friends, the importance of systems audit must be examined from a pragmatic point of view. We are not looking at a financial success. Simply because you have made a profit of some kind of 100 crores profit does not mean that you have performed well. And therefore, it's generally seen that the major reason of a downfall of the industries or the business is due to lack of coordination among various divisions and departments, resulting in loss of revenue and escalation in the cost. In order to curb this, system audit is conducted to overcome such situations. In essence, I repeat again, a systems audit is the verification of the company's processes and procedures with the results needed to achieve the intended results. It is an independent examination of the proper functioning of systems against defined criteria. Now, these criteria are defined under the audit norms. And so far, so good. I have not mentioned the computers yet. I have not mentioned anything. I'm only mentioning the scams for which you don't need a computer to commit that fraud. You don't need an artificial intelligence to commit an error or a fraud. Rather, you need that human intelligence. Now, how does a human intelligence overcome your system to commit a fraud? The management does not want to collapse. The management has spent a lot of money, effort, and the technology to set up something, not because it should collapse. Do you know what happened to the Titanic? The Titanic was a huge piece of art, sort of a modern kind of a thing of its time, and a huge ship was there with all the systems and everything. But still, the Titanic sank. Therefore, today's management does not want the Titanic to sink. Incidentally, there is a new Titanic being manufactured today in Middle East, and they say they are trying to guarantee that this Titanic will not sink. Coming to the point of the systems audit, the role of a systems auditor cannot, by any stretch of imagination, be a substitute for a financial audit or an internal audit. Therefore, we come back again to the main issue, why we need a systems audit. We need a systems audit so that it covers to us like some kind of a weapon to protect us. Why did we get a COVID shot? To protect us, to make our immune system cover us against the virus. Similarly, a virus has always entered everybody's business establishment. whether that virus grows into something, or you have to contaminate that virus or contain it and arrest the trend and make your financial health or the business health risk-free, and it develops and evolves. Dr. Vinay has earlier mentioned about associations and organized. For systems audit, we have understood what the purpose is, why the grinding axe is all the time moving the management towards a betterment, not just betterment of a procedure, but also betterment over all the policies. When an enterprise is formed for some goals. Now, whether those goals are intendedly translated into procedures or not. Take a case of a hospital. Now, in a hospital, what is your goal? To provide a service. Take the case of a school. What is the purpose there? To produce, have a holistic education in a school. So therefore, every organization or enterprise, whether it's a profit-making or a non-profit-making, no entity can be deprived of the benefit of a systems audit. We have a lot of assignments. I know so many members in practice, they carry out systems audit in schools. They carry out systems audit in hospitals, which are not just commercial. They are NGOs. And let me tell you, an NGO is twice rich than a commercial enterprise in India today. And then we look at the way the things are being handled. They say that, look, you are not doing this, or you are not this is not happening, or this system is not in place, or this procedure needs to be looked again, or no, there are certain parentable things. For example, the custodial functions and the responsibility functions are lying in the same person. It's like I'm saying, like as a cashier who's writing out the cashier who's holding the cash, the custody of the cash, he's also writing out the cash book. Would you like that to happen? Whether it is a commercial company or an NGO or anywhere, it's a cardinal principle that there has to be a division between the custody and the responsibility. Somebody is going to do the accounting, there has to be a different person than from the cashier. I wonder, most of you have done bank audits. Every April you go and do bank audits. You always find the cashier has got nothing to do with the cash book. The person who's sitting on the cash counter is only custody of the cash. He's only responsible for the cash. But he's got no control over the machinery which generates the cash balance. That is where your systems audit is going to come, where your cash control system takes place. Now we're looking at the types of the systems audit, the first party audit, the second party audit, and the third party audit. The first party audit would be where the entity or the organization carries out the audit on its own motion, on its own volition. It activates one of its left arm and checks the right arm. It goes on in its own way, and therefore it's got disconnected.
No, sir, we are audible. You are audible, sir.
So can I continue? Because
sure, sir.
blank.
No, sure, sir, you are audible.
Okay, fine. So now, therefore, we were looking at the types of the systems audit. The first one is the first party audit, where the organization or the entity uses its own forces, uses its own in-house machinery, in-house housekeeping, where members of one department go to the other department and they carry out their respective checks. Now, when you look at that kind of a thing, that is a kind of a self-audit, so that is known as a first kind of audit. Then you come to the next category, which is a second party audit, where there is, for a certification purpose, your organization gets examined by some outsider. Why? Because your organization wants to get a credit symbol. You want to get a label. Like, for example, like Dr. Vinay had said, you need an ISO certification, or you want some rating from the CRISIL. So therefore, when you get that number, that outsider will come and check on its own norms and standards. And that is, for that purpose, is a second party, and then a third party audit. Now here we must look at all these three categories of audits, not from divisioning particularly, but just purely from an academic understanding that where the systems audit, the author is yourself, or the author is somebody else, or you're outsourcing part of it, or the author is a third party agency with a specific route on a particular journey or a track route, then that kind of a systems audit would be defined as various species of audit. Again, we must understand, I am not mentioning anything to do with the computers so far. I am looking at that population where the people are not only maintaining accounts manually, but also on computer. So therefore, you have to look at in a largeness way that a systems audit is covering even the non-computerized. Today, it is not, it's everybody wants a computer. You can't think of running a business without a computer or data processing. And the way the generations are there, and the pragmatic journey which has been described already to us by Dr. Vinay about the data analytics and artificial automation, artificial intelligence, cloud computing, outsource accounting, blockchain, and trying to adopt an approach that an audit is done faster, and the repetitive transactions, you don't waste time on the repetitive transactions, and therefore you do it in a robotic manner and try to have a precision audit, if I can use the word. Probably the situation is very similar to a doctor who does not do the surgery himself. He makes the computer do the surgery. If you have gone for a cataract eye operation, or anybody has gone for a knee replacement, you would find that it is done on a robotic. The hospital says it is done robotic, so it is a zero error. So probably the concept of a robotic audit is not far off. Maybe like you would spend months doing concurrent audit, or monthly audit, or physical audit, by running out some test packs and certain runs on your systems. The financial auditor, I'm referring to the financial auditor or the statutory auditor, would probably hardly take 15 minutes and say, okay, I'm satisfied with your financial health. I'm willing to sign the balance sheet. That fast track kind of audit would happen because of the automation part. Therefore, what you're probably the auditor's approach from a manual auditor has become a technological or electronic auditor. Just like manual accountant has become an electronic accountant, we always foresee a manual auditor becoming a technological or an electronic auditor. So therefore, at the push of a button, in 10 minutes, your balance sheet is to be signed. Yes, sir, it is ready. I am willing to sign the balance sheet. And under the framework of the Companies Act, read with all your institute's guidelines, I am able to express an opinion on this electronic audit which has been done. Maybe I like to put a reservation by saying that I have done this audit not manually but robotically. So this is probably the word robotic audit might be introduced in the Companies Act very soon. Just like earlier Companies Act did not have any provision for electronic part. The word electronic was not there. So today the electronic thing is there. Even your shareholder meeting is being done on an electronic. Therefore, that concept of electronics has gone under a metamorphosis and altered the way of recording and doing things. So therefore, a statutory auditor under the Companies Act need not be an exception. So he would also enjoy the advantages too around with this. But I'm not trying to say that robotic accounting is going to eliminate systems audit. Let me tell you one thing. The computer is for us. We are not for the computers. Somebody had said that computers are for the business. The business is not for the computers. You don't design a computer software on artificial intelligence you don't say that your business needs are as per my computer. I will do this because my computer can do this. The computer is nothing but a artificial intelligence. Therefore, one has to look at the computer as probably, I would say, not a decision maker for your business. The business needs are going to dictate how you want to develop and evolve. Every time a computer development software program takes place anywhere around the world, they try to understand the needs of the business enterprise. And this is what the systems audit is all about. If you carry out a systems audit, even in an electronic environment, and if you find that there is a lot of issues coming up in the computer handling, the storage, the designing of the program. In fact, the person who is designing the program is also associated in executing the program. That is a disaster. Definitely, he should not have any access into an editable mode. That's why the concept of blockchain has come in, that once you record, you can look at it, you cannot edit it. And therefore, if you look at the technology, it is a very good thing. But if a technology can be abused to the disadvantage or the advantage. In fact, I remember one very old case. It happened in the US where a very nice payroll software program was developed for payroll accounting. And in that payroll accounting, there was debugging, and the program ran again and again. And then in that debugging process, there was a small issue coming up for a short and excess. Now the payment is made on a weekly basis in dollars. So somebody's money would come, but they want to pay the money in the round figure. So there would be a short and excess. So the computer programmer very conveniently introduced a debugging, some kind of a procedure in the software, saying that any excess or shortfall, rounding too much so to the nearest dollar, it would be credited to some XYZ account. Believe me, that XYZ account belonged to a beneficiary of the computer developer, the software developer, and nobody noticed it. Millions of dollars in the shape of rounding off, they were parked clandestinely in another bank account until the systems auditor came in and noticed that debugging kind of an activity had an access to the editable programs. So therefore, what I'm trying to convey is that although a robotic accountant may lead us to a 0 degree level or a 0 error kind of a thing, but definitely if the human intelligence is there, because the computer is not going to commit the fraud. Computer is not a human. A computer, basically, it would be throwing out what is fed into this. Therefore, if something wrong is fed into the computer, then that bad thing only is going to come out. Out of the falsity, you cannot take out the truth. Out of the truth, you can take out the false. And therefore, coming back to the concept of a robotic accounting, then I have my reservations that, look, even in a systems audit can point out errors. So we cannot say that, look, you can simplify a financial audit, but you can never eliminate a systems audit. A systems audit has to look at a system. And when it looks at a system, the importance cannot be undermined. Why? Because if one small area of a system fails, the whole thing collapses and the Titanic sinks. The biggest ship has sunk. So the biggest enterprises, the biggest industry houses, they have collapsed because of the smallest of slips. One minor slip or one minor procedure can cost an organization so much financial loss or stability. We have had so many scams in the country. Our country is so famous for scams. What is a scam? Anybody can help us. Anybody here can react on the word scam. But the number of scams are so many that we keep forgetting the scams. But have you ever analyzed why a scam happens?
Basically, it's a procedure of failure of the procedures let down or practices.
That means a system has gone down. A system has let down. Manishji, do you have a burglary alarm system in your house? Do you have a camera system in your house? Yes. These are all electronic devices. There are people who sit in their house and they are controlling their factory floor. There is a camera installed in the factory. The factory is about 50 kilometers away, and you're sitting in your room and watching the factory from your camera. Now, what happens if a burglar wants to come to your house? What would you do? What would the burglar do? The burglar is an outsider. He knows your house. He knows there is a burglary alarm. So what is he going to do? The first thing he's going to do is
remove cameras.
Yes, he's going to sabotage your system. And therefore, similarly, the same concept applies for any systems audit. Anywhere you have a system, people who want to break that system. That's how there is a weakness found in the system. I take you to a very nice scam. अब तो सबने सुना भी होगा. Now it is revived into a episode serial, the Harshad Mehta scam, where the auditors were brought to task. Auditors were said that you were financially auditing. What were you doing? But how did the scam start? The scam started because there was a small loophole in the system. What happened to the Punjab National Bank scam? The latest scam. Mr. Modi, Mr.
Nirav Modi.
Yeah, Mr. Nirav Modi.
Offline system was parallelly working and systems were not integrated.
Yes, so they were not integrated, and his renewals were being accumulated year after year. बैंक गारंटी, आपने बैंक गारंटी दे दिया, तो बैंक गारंटी देने का मतलब है आपके हाथ में मैंने महात्मा गांधी का कैश दे दिया. बैंक गारंटी का अर्थ होता है कैश, पूंजी. Now that cash was being accumulated and renewal of guarantees, and there was a slip up, and he took an advantage of it. So therefore, I'm not trying to say that we should learn from these scams and become scamsters. I don't want to do that. I'm not promoting a scam. I'm only trying to say that the auditor, the financial auditor, cannot be overstretched to include such scams. Now, why we do look at the industries? Why don't we look at the other people? There was an airline, the whole airline went bust because of there was a whole bank getting bust. Why? How can a bank collapse? The share price of that bank is 1,000 rupees and it becomes 10 paisa the next morning. Therefore, we have to look at, because the scam is occurring because of the fall of the systems. And as a systems auditor, you have to identify not scams, but potential areas which can perpetrate a scam. I am not willing to accept that scams will stop. I'm not willing to accept that the natural intelligence of the human mind will stop doing corrupt practices. Corruption is never going to stop. As long as we breathe, whether it's an oxygen cylinder, you have an oxygen cylinder scam. So therefore, whatever is said and done, we cannot by any chance take some kind of a situation where the systems audit can be eliminated or it can be bypassed. In fact, the systems auditor is playing a very golden role. It is protecting the environment from intrusion of the data. It is not only talking about data security, it also protects the future of the enterprise. The business houses, NGOs, development plans, everyone is worried about what happens tomorrow. Will my business is protected for tomorrow? Even if you take an insurance policy, even then you are not protected from a collapse of procedures. A procedure is like, I should best describe a procedure, a broken procedure would be like you have to protect yourself from the virus. In fact, a systems audit has a very large integrate implication. We always talk about a system. Now, we do not look at the failure of a system. What is the possibility or what is the probability that a system is going to run where at the same level of efficacy. You install a system, it needs to be serviced, it needs to be reviewed. Why reviewed? Because the needs of the user are also undergoing a change. When we look at the needs of a person, because of the growing environment, the growing change, the growing age, the needs of that person are undergoing a massive metamorphosis. And because of this transformation, if the needs of a person are being changed, then ipso facto, we cannot deny that the systems audit needs would also be changed. If the needs are changed, the system needs to be changed. And basically, a system audit is trying to address the peculiarities arising out of changed environment. Quite often, we do understand, we also preach sometimes that to be consistent is a safe path. But let me tell you, change is the need of the hour. Everything needs to be changed. Nothing is permanent. And as long as change happens, then the systems also accordingly change. We got an excellent demonstration from the earlier in the keynote address, where he told us how the journey of the data storage has traveled. The moment the data no longer remains that small piece of paper. Earlier, the managements were not even aware of a computer, but they ran their industries very well. Our whole industrial revolution in our country and the development of the country, where the big houses, industrial houses have been born, they did start from scratch, but they had their own systems. In fact, they have a system which was not formalized, but it was informalized, in the sense that system it was always there. Now later on, we started coining words, coining phrases for policies, procedures, and then we evolved into we found ourselves into a situation that there is a plethora of data around us, and that data has become uncontrollable. So then we start looking at trying to contain that data, maybe suppress that data. Originally, we had those big spools in which we could store. Today, we have these small pen drives. We can record the full data, having chips and bytes. Now, if you look at the condensation part in the procedure, then the concept of the cloud computing comes. Now, today, that system audit has to be addressed in that manner. We must also understand that there is a importance of system audit to be seen where the actual operations of the concern or the company, they are compared to what originally was planned. When you look at the actual operations and then you look at how the intended operations were, that comparison generates a variance. Now that variance analysis throws out the action points, and that's where the systems auditors' findings protect that, look, you are taking your ship into an area where this compass doesn't work, or this light doesn't work, or this alarm system doesn't work. So kindly repair your system so that you can take your journey or the ship into the higher seas and reach your tasks and your goals. There could be a storm. Now, the storm is a change in the environment. Now your organization is not fitted with such a radar to overcome that storm. So therefore you have to prepare for yourself and find out remedial stories. And then you have to validate the objects pursued by the organization. They also remain relevant in the picture. Also, you ensure that the systems which are used are reliable. We don't want a system which breaks down after 2 hours or 3 hours, or it is a standby system. We don't want standby. We want something which is durable, enduring, permanent, and lasting. We want a system which can sustain all storm, hail, and fire. We want a system which protects us and gives us warning signals. You know, like a human body, I explained in the beginning, is a system, you know. So if something is going wrong with you, you're not feeling well, then one of your system tells you that, look, something is wrong with your digestive system or cardiac system or whatever. So therefore, that warning signal which is there in your human body, that warning signal becomes the systems audit findings in a business organization. The business organization is very akin to the human body. They say it has a head, it has a heart, it has a soul. So that organization also needs a systems audit or a nervous system where the nerves are pricked out and the body or the organization, the head of the organization is aware that something is going wrong. Long back, there was a software which was evolved by the computer people, and they said, this is called, sir, this is a newly introduced, and they sold it worldwide. That software was called Oracle. I don't know whether anybody is aware about Oracle. In Oracle, it was something like it would cover every part of the organization, and particularly in the case of the inventory and the automobile association, the area where automobile industry is there, in an Oracle program, you could pinpoint everything: shortages, distribution, network, transportation, assignment. It was all rolled into one. It was a beautiful package. But then it needs to be leveled up. Today also your computers go through generation. So you have a hardware development, you have a software development. But the hardware and the software must have a compatibility. Sometimes if you have a very intricate software and your hardware is not friendly to it, the system is going to collapse. Similarly, there should be a happy marriage between the hardware and the software. Also, the management must be concerned that whether the software which is being developed, whether it is according to serving the needs of the organization or not. The organization wants to control, the organization wants to monitor, the organization wants to supervise, and I'm talking about the top management. The top management sometimes is not even aware of an accident, and that accident can happen anywhere. Now when I talk about an accident, I mean accident in the data. Suppose a database is eroded, a database is leaked. There is a way of accessing. You know, sometimes I always feel nervous talking about storage, because the moment you talk of storage, you have to protect your storage from somebody called the Institute of Hackers. There is a very big organized racket where hackers can hack you. So many times the cyber crimes are there, and in cyber crimes it has been seen that some slip happens and the entire database is stolen. Now, a management may be very rich in technology, may be very rich in everything, but it will collapse the moment it finds that its data or its database has been eroded or the database has been hacked. Now, a hacked data is as if somebody has entered your house and stabbed you right in your presence. Now, therefore you cannot survive. How can you continue your business with your hacked? Quite often you find your emails are getting hacked. Quite often you find your mobile data is being hacked. Suddenly, as you're talking to me, you will find there is a SMS alert coming into your mobile. Sum of rupees so much has been taken out of your bank. How did he come to know about that? How did the hacker know? And therefore, you go to the cyber crime and try to look at the background of these cyber crimes. And that will give us an idea that a large part of the population is becoming wary of computers. They say computers are no longer as reliable as they ought to be. It is not the fault of the computers. It is a fault of the systems in and around the computers. Therefore, the people who are software developers, they become software hackers. They design something, and that kind of technology becomes very dangerous. After all, everything can be used and everything can be misused. So therefore, as long as the technology is used properly, it's fine. But one small petty abuse of that technology anywhere in the organization can spell a disaster. And that disaster can cost the life, probably I would say, not only the life, probably the industry can also suffer. You can always emulate yourself as a harbingers of some kind of a protector of the security of the environment. We as chartered accountants are playing an excellent, probably we should be also branded something like the freedom fighters, because we are fighting for the freedom of the industry. The industry should survive, grow, prosper without any loss or risk. You know, it's very difficult to run a business with always a fear factor of somebody going to sabotage you. It's like somebody blackmailing you, or somebody trying to hold you at ransom of your business, which you have constructed with so much of strive, perspiration and effort. And therefore, nobody has a right to do that to you. You are having a fundamental right of being protected. The financial audit carried out under a statute by a statutory auditor does a limited role of a financial audit. It does not substitute for a systems audit. And that's where the systems auditor partakes the role of a protector, or probably I would say he's a lifeboat. He becomes a lifesaver. Inadvertently, or just probably in a very non-callant manner, in a very subtle way, the systems auditor is playing a very contributing role to preserve the character of the industry, to protect it. Everyone needs protection. Why? Because everybody is at a risk. Therefore, everyone is entitled to install systems. Those systems can be manual, they can be electronic, they can be mechanical, whatever they are. But those systems, whether they are running or not, that can happen only if they are verified. Now, who verifies them? Periodically, from top to the bottom. As you percolate from the top to bottom, the nature of the systems also undergo a sea change. The type of systems which you will find operating at the lower levels, they may be different. After all, everywhere you have a system and everything is computerized, so it becomes very easy for you to check. But let me tell you, simply because your business house or your client is having a computerized environment, that should be the last thing to influence you that, look, everything is fine. A system is running, it's fine. Even in the case of financial audit, where the statutory auditor, he goes to look at the signing the balance sheet. He likes to see whether the accounting system is running properly. So what he will do is, he will rely on hash totals, check digits, or test pack run. He'll feed it some kind of an artificial data from one side and he'll say, let me see whether this program works or not. So once he is happy with the input output and he is able to get out of it, he'll say, fine, I am satisfied and my statutory audit report is okay. But he's not going to look at it from a systems auditor point of view. He's not looking at as a survival benefit kind of achieving some kind of protection for the survival. He's only looking at the limited task assigned to him under the Companies Act, express an opinion on the truth and fairness of the accounts generated from a system. Beyond that, he doesn't do that. And if he is not happy, he will be too glad to say that systems are not working. He will be too glad to say that internal audit is not commensurate with the size and the nature of the business. Or he'll be too glad to say that I'm not, there's no system exists for purchases or tender system or quality or monitoring the storage or whatever. So he can frame his own dissatisfaction. And sometimes you might have seen that a statutory auditor does not hesitate to give a full disclaimer He says, I have got nothing to do with these accounts because I'm not happy with the accounts. So a statutory auditor can give a disclaimer, can give a clean report, can give a qualified report, but the issue of a statutory auditor's report does not conclude the satisfaction of a systems audit. So therefore, probably the action taken report, we go back to the board meeting, right, we started with the lecture with, that in the board meeting when the report is presented, then they say, look, let us have a systems audit carried out. Now, whether it is going to be a first party systems audit or a second party systems audit or a third party or an outside agency, we want to outsource, like the accountancy can be outsourced, we can outsource a systems audit also, or we can have the systems audit done in-house also, whereby the left hand goes and checks the right hand, or the right hand goes and checks the left hand of the same organization on an in-house basis. And therefore, then we look at the types of systems audit. There are adequacy audits, compliance audit, internal audit, external audit, extrinsic audit, and a process audit. These are just technical terms, honestly, friends. We must try to appreciate that any systems audit which is done with a particular purpose in mind, that purpose designs the kind of the systems audit we have. Let us look at an adequacy audit. An adequacy audit done as a systems audit would mean that you are trying to see whether the policies and procedures are adequate or not. That means, is the system falling short of the expectations of the management or not? Whether it is at the lower level or at the middle level or at the top level. A compliance audit, similarly, in a systems audit, when it becomes a compliance audit, it looks at the various compliances, whether the systems are capable of ensuring compliance. Remember one thing, you are not auditing the data. In a systems audit, one always travels towards the data. Your mind says, oh, I have to look at the data. You do not have to look at the data. Because if you're looking at the data, then you are doing a financial data or a financial audit. But you have to look at the systems which is producing the data. These two things are different things. One thing is, you look at the data. No, you don't look at the data. You look at the quality of the data. And the quality of the data is directly dependent upon the kind of the system which is producing the data. Now, if the quality of the system is poor, then what kind of data you expect? You can never expect a quality data from a poor system. As far as a computer's level of intelligence is concerned, I am totally convinced with the concept of GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. So if you put in garbage into a computer, it is going to give me garbage only. So therefore, what is important is who decides what data is to be input at what level, in what manner, and how the data has to be interpreted when it is taken out after the processing. So therefore, when you have to look at the compliance audit, you have to look at not the data for the compliance, but you have to ensure whether the systems ensure the compliance of certain matters. What can be these compliances? These compliances can be statutory, it can be natural, it can be environmental, it can be government imposed, it can be induced through control measures, monitor driven, it can be from any kind. But you as a systems auditor in compliance audit are ensuring whether the systems are producing compliance of procedures or not. Then you look at the internal audit. Internal audit I already explained to you earlier. That internal audit is carried out by the internal stakeholders within the organization. The left arm goes to the right arm, and therefore you have to look at it. That is a cheaper mode because the management understands best itself. Outsider need not understand you. You yourself understand your body. So you yourself are more conversant with the weakness and the strength of your systems. So maybe you want to check out whether your body is behaving properly or not. In that sense, the first degree audit is there. Then you have external audit in which are carried out by an outside and independent organization. This again, like explained to you, is called a second party audit. Then you come to the last one, which is called an extrinsic audit. An extrinsic means an outsider agency is going to assign you a label, a brand, that look, you belong to this club, this elite club. So you are ISO something. Now, quite often, regulatory bodies are imposing restrictions of obtaining these kind of licenses, that your organization is fulfilling the standards of excellence. Like for example, a school is supposed to have a label from your audit, from ISO 9002. So there is a brand there. So then they print on the letterheads and everywhere that, look, our school is ISO audit. Quite often you might find a hospital, a medical council of the country has prescribed certain levels of standards to be maintained in an ideal hospital. So they assign a label to it. Similarly, like in the case of a financial agency, you have that CRISIL or AAA. Now they say that, look, we assign you a label. Now these people have their norms. So therefore, a systems audit is carried out by an agency on behalf of CRISIL, fill up the forms, get the systems audit done, and they make out a report. And therefore, they say, yes, this organization is entitled to enjoy this for this period. And then comes the review part. Once you have completed the systems audit, it doesn't mean that you need not get it again. Everything needs to be reviewed. Like a human body falls ill, you go to the doctor, he treats you. After you become all right, then you go back for a checkup. You say, okay, come back after 2 months, come back after 3 months. What is he trying to do? He's trying to find out whether your vascular system is working properly or not, whether your digestive system is working out or not. Therefore, he's carrying out his diagnostic procedures. Similarly, a systems auditor, once he has carried out a systems audit in a school or in a hospital or in an organization, he is bound to review it, the impact of the continuity of the review of the systems. You have a camera installed, like we all had discussed earlier. When the camera is installed in your house, then you always service the camera. Or if you have an elevator or a lift installed in your house, every month you have to get that, because without the license, without the maintenance certificate of that lift, you cannot maintain the lift. The license of the lift can be withdrawn. So the municipal authority can come and seal the lift in your premises. So therefore, that is part of a system. So what the liftman comes and does, the mechanic, he comes and checks all the logistics. He comes and checks the strength and everything, the pressure point, everything, the switches, and he technically certifies it that the lift system is running proper. Similarly, you as systems auditor have to visit the organization on a review basis. A lot of chartered accountant companies who are not having the financial audits as statutory audits, they are venturing into the realm of systems audits, and they have carried out systems audits pan-India, all over, irrespective of the nature of the activity being done. You could be a systems auditor for a school, you could be a systems auditor for, I would say, a hospital or an NGO. You could be a systems auditor where sometimes the Companies Act may not be applicable. So therefore, it could be a trust or a society. Yet at the same time, you could be a systems auditor in a company where your 144 doesn't apply to you as a statutory auditor, and somebody else is doing the statutory audit, and you can carry out the systems audit and throw up the points. Today, the Companies Act has evolved in such a manner that the management has got some kind of a delegated pieces of work is there. So therefore, when you sit at the board, everyone is delegating it. What I'm trying to say, that the main primary function is delegated into committees. So like you have a corporate social responsibility committee. Okay, fine. Now that committee is sanctioning expenditure. Fine. But that expenditure is audited financially. That's okay. But what is the system they have evolved to incur that expenditure? Who's going to do that systems audit? That is you. You is going to advise them that there's to be a system evolved, how the expenditure is not going down the drain, how it is being met into the as per the intended policy made out by the Corporate Social Responsibility Committee. Same way you have an audit committee, audit review committee, where they promulgate some kind of policies. Now, whether those policies are translated into the procedures and there are adequate systems running into a situation where, yes, we are having the right infrastructure percolated down to the last penny, and we are able to evolve that system audit, and yes, the systems are running fine. Let me tell you, if the systems don't run, the organizations run, but they start falling down. They get dilapidated. Like if a system starts collapsing, I would say it is very similar to a termite. A termite enters a building or a wooden furniture. It looks fine. The furniture is fine till you go and sit on that furniture which is termite ridden. You collapse. Similarly, the building collapse. And therefore, let that termite not enter. Now, how do you ensure that termite doesn't enter? It will not enter by and large if you have a proper effective systems audit. And the systems audit will look at whether the efficacy of the system is not only sustained but also improved from time to time. I repeat the concept of efficacy. Efficacy is the capacity to produce the desired results. If a system cannot produce the desired results or cannot deliver the intended data, then that system need not exist. Then probably quite often when we start introducing a system, we are very much obsessed with the cost factor. To your client, if you ask him that, look, sir, you must introduce this system, it's going to protect you. Quite often there is a strong resistance. And a resistance happens that, look, I am not interested in this system because the cost of the system is far greater than the benefit from the system. Therefore, why should I spend 5 rupees in order to save 5 paisa? Therefore, in largeness of interest. Now, therefore, there the systems auditor has a problem. How does he come around the client, or how does he protect himself? Then it is in the interest of the systems auditor to have a closure of the systems audit when he generates the closure. And when he closes systems audit, he takes the client's consent on that specific issue. That, look, my systems audit report recommends this X procedure. The cost of X and the potential benefit of Y is not balanced. So therefore, on a cost benefit analysis, the client is declining to accept. Keeping this reservation in mind, my system audit is clean, or I recommend that the systems are working fine and the efficacy is okay, subject to this particular procedure called X. Now, therefore, there you as a systems auditor, tomorrow if the system fails, then the client cannot take you for a professional negligence. After all, a systems auditor is suffering also a professional liability. He has to answer this professional diligence that, look, I must not be hauled up tomorrow for professional negligence that I have not done a proper systems audit. And therefore, tomorrow the client should not have this liberty. So therefore, then you can show the audit report and say that, look, sir, I had pointed out that here this systems audit would collapse because of this. Like I explained to you again, I reiterate that a small virus, a small termite can collapse the whole thing. The whole Titanic can sink in that way. And then we come to the finally to the, after discussing the audit report, we now finally come to the audit closure and follow up. Now, when I talk about audit closure, I would say the audit is completed when all the planned audit activities have been carried out. What are those planned ones? What you had earlier looked at the logistics and made out systems analysis that, look, I'm going to cover all these systems. I'm going to check inside the computer, I'm going to check around the computer, I'm going to check in the records, outside the records. I'm not going to check the data, because I'm not looking at the data, I'm looking at the machinery which is producing the data, because I'm looking at the procedures which produce the data. If the procedures are bad, then the data is of no consequence to me. So therefore, once they have been carried out, then otherwise they have been agreed with the audit client. It quite happens that the area gets to be compromised. Sometimes the client says, I'm not interested in the systems audit in this portion, or in this segment of the organization. The client puts across a thought process that I would not like you to do the systems audit in this area. So giving your saving clauses, giving your limitations, as a systems auditor, you conclude all the planning stages, and then you have a closure stage. And once you have a closure stage, then once all the audit is carried out, that is the end of the audit process. Therefore, the system audit, which started with a particular goal in its mind, it comes back to its point, and you generate a report, an observation, which is almost similar to any report. Also remember, a system audit, sometimes members do get confused between a system audit and an investigation. Investigation cannot be described as an audit. Let me tell you that. An investigation is more of a process which can be defined as an evidence gathering process to establish a hypothesis or to deny a hypothesis. That means you are confronted with a particular hypothesis, a limited hypothesis. Like suppose, like there could be a potential fraud, so the management may feel that let us carry out an investigation whether Mr. XYZ is a fraudulent employee. Like there is a gentleman, Mr. XYZ, he's working in the organization. The management finds out that he is gathering assets which are far more greater and not commensurate with the level of salary which he is enjoying. So the management appoints an investigator. The investigator need not go into the records or the systems. He may go beyond the records in the systems. He may go into the personal life of Mr. XYZ. He may go to the house and so many things. So therefore, investigation cannot be substituted or even compared with a systems audit. Also, an investigation is a single purpose. It's a single unitary kind of a activity. Once that activity is achieved or that hypothesis is proved, that either you gathered so much of evidence which proves that Mr. XYZ is innocent, or you prove Mr. XYZ is fraudulent. Then the action is to be taken by the management. The investigator doesn't take the action. The action is taken by the management, whether they take him to the economic offences wing or they let him go, whatever. But after he has gone, after his agenda is over, the investigation dies its natural death. But in systems audit, you are going far beyond. In systems audit, you're not looking at a particular Mr. XYZ. You're not focusing, or you're not going with a biased view that something is wrong with XYZ. You are going with a proper approach to look whether the system is capable of delivering the results or the desired results or not. The system has the capacity to produce the desired results or not. Whether a system is workable or not, or a system is collapsing, because the management does not tolerate collapsed systems. Quite often, a system gets collapsed, but it never comes to the notice of anybody. You know why? Because there is no system of review in the organization. If there was a system of review, periodically review, then it would always happen. Take the case of inventory control. We always say we have an ABC system of inventory control, but nobody implements it. They only stack the accounting of the inventories according to an always better control. A category, B category, and C category. And on a percentage basis they do the verification. The periodicity of verification for category A may be, let us say, 5 times a week. For B, it may be 2 times a week. For C, it may be once a month. So therefore, that is kind of a inventory control, they say. But whether that system is workable for ABC or not, or whether ABC is desirable for you or not. It's quite possible that there is another version of inventory control, another procedure, another system which is far better or far more accurate, or probably its efficacy is far much more and higher than the old system. Therefore, it needs to be reviewed. Again, when your stocks are of 5 kilos, you may have some kind of a control. If you are having stocks of 50 kilos, your approach may be different. Your stocks are of 5,000 kilos, again it may be different. Then again, the goods could be in transit. So therefore, when they are in transit, there could be a different system. Now, I'm not looking at the value of the goods. I'm not looking at the numbers. I'm not looking at the data. What I'm looking at is the system which is recording the data, the system which is producing the data, the system whether it is sufficient enough for me to procure myself. It's like, I want to get a video camera in my house. Now, what points I should cover the video camera? Should I cover everywhere in the video camera? Or I just focus at the gate, at the exit gate, at the entry gate? That's enough. So only 2 cameras would be enough for me. So therefore, what is to be decided over here is that whether it has to be 1 camera or 2 cameras or 3 cameras. And then comes the review, whether the cameras are working or not. What is the technological prescription of the camera? Is it a small camera, size camera? Where it should be positioned? Should you position the camera at such a level where it can be tampered with by anyone? Then the whole policy of having a camera would collapse. So therefore, we could go on, we could take millions and trillions of examples just to explain the basic concept. My dear friends, we must address the issue of systems audit by only looking at the systems. We should not look at the data which is producing the system. We should look at whether the system has the degree of preparedness, whether the system has the degree of capacity to produce the desired results. And then we have to spend a little minute on vulnerability assessment. We have to see how far the systems are vulnerable. When I talk about vulnerable, I mean a company cannot basically eliminate 100% of vulnerability. Vulnerability means anybody can attack you. They can attack yourself through you, meteorically, electronically. Today, the internet, your cyber attacks. In fact, the law in our country has just evolved. Your cyber laws which have been done, they have been amended again and again. Now they are taking finer course. So therefore, whether the vulnerability is there or not there, that becomes a very major crisis for us. So therefore, your systems audit will always suffer from the evil of vulnerability, because everyone is exposed. When I say vulnerability, like if your human body is so much vulnerable that today wearing a mask has become mandatory. Similarly, your systems audit would also be vulnerable to risks of piracy, hacking, virus. The computer can be hacked. You may not be aware, but some virus has entered. Why? Because you downloaded a software. And there always has to be a system which has to be tested. Now, for this conference, I was given a link and I was said, sir, at 11 o'clock, please come online. We want to test you. What are they trying to do? They're trying to test the system. This exactly is what a systems audit is. A systems audit is where the people in the institute are connecting with each one of us much prior to the conference, as early as 6 hours earlier. 6 hours prior, we're looking whether our systems are working, whether your name is there, your volume is there, your control is there, your image is there, you can hear me, you cannot hear me, something going haywire. All these are called technical systems. Now, unless you do not do this kind of a systems audit, that means you have a procedure for this. If you do not have the procedure, then you run the risk of collapse. You run the risk of vulnerability. You run the risk of being attacked by a virus. Now, how do I know whether this software or the link, whether if I download on my laptop or on my computer, whether it carries something with it or not? Some Trojan war, the Trojan evil, like we call it, the Trojan horse. We have all heard about it, that when it looks like a horse, but it is something else. So then that kind of analysis has to be taken care of. And then you have a threat identification. That threat or the menace to your existence or to the risk analysis has to be worded out. There are companies which face the threat of external factors such as outsourced service providers. In all your ambition, you say, I will outsource it. You talk to your management, your client, they say, I will outsource it. Now, when you outsource the service to the outside service provider, or you have a third party associate, or a company's vendors, or a company's suppliers, that becomes a very big issue. In fact, quite often, you say that I'm having this organization. Now, that organization maybe is just a facelift for a hidden agenda. That is why we had the Foreign Contribution Act amended with seriousness, and lot of funds were stopped from abroad. People are running an organization here, money is coming from abroad. So under the Foreign Contribution Act, we ban the contribution. Why? Because that money is not intended for this purpose for which they are showing. That money is probably for something else. There was a word phrase like economic terrorism, funding of ammunition, funding of terrorists. Where the money is coming in India, why it is coming through this track route. So therefore, the government in all its wisdom locks the windows and says under the Foreign Contribution Act, this money will not come in. That is covered by the threat identification. That is a legal system. So when you carry out a systems audit, you have to look at the threat, that are you put to threat or not. How much time I have now?
Sir,
are you there?
5 minutes.
5 minutes. Okay. So, fine. So I'll try to wind up now. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
So we look at the internal controls also, because this financial auditor is also looking at the internal controls, but he's looking out from a different purpose. His purpose from looking at the internal controls is only for financial data. But when a systems auditor is looking at the internal controls, he's not only looking at the financial controls, he's looking at the administrative controls also. Let me explain. Internal control system is a combination of financial controls as well as non-financial controls. Now, the systems auditor is more obsessed with the system of the controls. He's not interested in the data. He's not interested in your attendance. He doesn't want to look at your attendance record. But he is very much obsessed whether they have a system of punching or not. Is the punching system working all right or not? Somebody who has punched, or he has not punched the last one, the entry he has punched, but he has not punched the exit. So he should be marked a half day. Now, whether there is system is being implemented or not, he's not looking at the number of people who are wrong punching. He's not looking into the actual operation. He's not looking into the data which is being generated, those punched cards or whatever. But he's more interested in the whole system of the punching part, whether there is there or not. And then comes the testing. He has to test the internal controls, whether they are in operation or not. So he runs, like a financial auditor runs a test pack. Similarly, a systems auditor has the liberty and the opportunity to run a test pack over an internal control system. So he looks at internal control system, he runs artificial data through it, and if he is satisfied, he says, fine, the system is okay. But the adequacy of the system is right or not, I have to see that. I have to see whether I have the capacity to deliver or not. And then you come to compensating controls. Quite often, in some cases, the auditor finds that there are specific processes or technologies which are needed to control the objective. So therefore, it's not very much hard to find. Sometimes, the technological development itself offers a very nice menu card, of kind of controls. So whatever controls you have. Like, for example, today, if you buy a television in your house, there is a command which is called parental controls. So you can control and then that means there is a system of parental control. You are able to control the level of the audience, whether the children can watch something or not watch something. Even I think the laptop should also have a parental control. And with this summary, I would say that systems audit has to stay forever as long as we are alive. Thank you.
I request all the participants, if they have any questions to be asked from our eminent speaker, then please write in the question box so that we can ask the questions from our speaker. So I request all the participants who have any questions, because we have 10 minutes to have question and answer round. So if anybody have the question, then please write it, then I will ask with our speaker.
Sir, well, I don't have any specific query. Earlier, as far as you have discussed the system audit, so I see it's a round completing what we were studying, that system audit through the computer and audit with the computer. And as you have underlined the thing that audit philosophy doesn't change, whether we are doing a systems audit, and the conscious of an auditor which comes majorly into play. So am I correct while thinking and summarizing the things?
You have done a wonderful summary. I would say that an auditor would always mentally remain an auditor.
It has been a wonderful thing, sir. You have given a new perspective as far as linking with the system and statutory and traveling us to all kinds of audit with the systems. It has been great, sir. Yes, Vijayji, please. We have any questions in the question box?
No, not now. Sir, I have one question. While taking loan against properties, some bank ask and use certificate from a CA.
Yes.
So how would we identify that the loan taken by any party will be used by that purpose only? We cannot identify that the loan amount taken by any person will be used by the particular purpose which they have told to the bank. We cannot identify that.
You see, there is an issue relating to the utilization certificate.
Yes.
Chartered accountants are issuing utilization certificate not only for banks, but they're also giving it in various other situations where the grants are given.
Yes.
There is a subsidy being granted by a state government, or a foreign NGO is getting some grant from abroad. You have this. I've issued a lot of utilization certificates for these lower classes of units where they get from the ministry. So the ministry is issuing money for funding certain, NGOs or charitable or philanthropic units. So there they have a particular prescribed format. So what happens is they incur the expenditure and they come to us, and we have a standard format, and we say the sum of 10 lakhs was received by the unit, which has been spent under the undernoted manner. Or sometimes the sponsorship is there. Like some of our clients, they get grants from abroad for promotion. So therefore, that is one issue where the utilization is there. Your question specific, what you are asking is that a bank is giving loan against a property.
It is LAP, yes, exactly.
Yeah, bank is giving loan against a property for what? That means the terms of the loan will tell us whether the property is collateral or it is not collateral. But if the property is collateral, then the main limit is given under what? Is it a term loan or it is a cash credit? Now there are two concepts of finance. One is a term loan, that means he's buying some immovable property, or he's looking for his working capital needs, which means that he's going to open a cash credit account. So it becomes very difficult in the case of cash credit account. But in term loans, where the building is bought, there you can ask for the title deed and have a direct nexus. Generally in such cases, the bank issues the check in the name of the seller or the vendor of the property. So there's not a major issue in that event. But for a cash credit account, I have my reservations whether a chartered accountant can certify the utilization in cash credit account.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Thank you, sir. With the permission of Vijay, sir, I just have one small query. while performing system audits, we come across some limitations which system also have from the
Exactly.
quantitative perspective, or some wrong heading. And
Yes.
though materiality wise, the report is depicting the correct result.
Yep.
Still, when auditing the system, we need to bring this point to the management, or to the readers of this reports, or an advisory would suffice the purpose.
No. Then you have to qualify. As a systems auditor, you have to tell him that I wanted to do this, but I could not do this.
Okay. Matlab, it has impact on the scope of the audit, you mean to say?
Absolutely. For example, you know what? Because in systems audit, you're not looking at the financial records. You're not looking at the data. You're looking at the system which is generating the data. I keep on repeating everywhere I go, on any forums I speak. People always confuse with systems audit with investigation. So it is not an investigation. And systems audit is different from financial audit. A financial audit is looking at the data. All the time you keep looking at the data. You're focused on the data. My GP rate, my sales rate, my closing stock ratio, my purchase ratio. So you're looking at on a macro, you carry out ratio analysis to satisfy yourself that look, financially they are fine or not. Financial data. But in systems audit, you never carry out a GP rate. In systems audit, you're looking out at the systems which are generating that financial data. And there, suppose there is an area where you cannot go physically, or you cannot examine because of the systems. Maybe something has happened, the building is sealed. Sometimes building has been sealed. You didn't pay your GST in time, so the GST authorities have come and sealed your premises. Or your part of your branch is in the enemy area. The enemy has taken over. What can you do? So you're deprived. So your scope has become eroded. Your scope has become little bit shrunk. So therefore, what will you do? In financial audit, you give a disclaimer कि मैं नहीं हाथ लगाता, मुझे कुछ नहीं पता इसके बारे में. I am not responsible for this portion. So therefore, that can happen in financial audit. In systems audit also, you can give your qualification. Like I explained to you that sometimes the management says, मुझे ये system introduce नहीं करना because of the cost benefit analysis. So then you will qualify your disclaimer in your, because what is happening is, आपने एक छोटा सा procedure नहीं किया, you become penny wise and pound foolish. You know why? Because आपने virus को entry का pass दे दिया. You have given an opportunity for the virus to enter into your system. God forbid, there is no way out to detect a virus. Sometimes even chartered accountants, when they go, they find in the system, the virus aa gaya. The employee says, what happened? He says, you did not renew your virus software. The not on virus software ka paisa jama nahi kiya. So therefore the virus came. So the virus is not going to ring you up and say, sir, I'm coming.
Yes.
It brings me to an sorry Vijayji, sorry.
Yeah, no problem.
It brings to me an important point that even if system is giving the results at correct, but that could be due to the other methodology or internal control being built in the system, but the system is not performing in the required manner, or what was considered by the management, it becomes the point of qualification for the system audit.
Absolutely. I'll give you a small example. Like in a departmental store. Now you don't go to a departmental store because you all the time order online. E-commerce has become your style. But in the olden days, when the e-commerce was not there, people were in the departmental store. What would they do? Have you noticed one thing in the departmental store? The delivery counter is always located near the exit gate.
Near exit gate. True.
Why? That is a cardinal principle of internal check. Mm-hmm. The internal check does not talk about the goods. It talks about the arrangement. The arrangement of the task, duties and responsibilities are made in such a way that the work of one person gets checked by the other. Now the delivery counter is near the exit. Why? Because when you are going to take the delivery, then it is none of your business to go back to the store. Then you have to exit the store. So therefore, otherwise you are a potential person you could have a thief kind of a thing. Take another example. each product in the supermarkets where there are no customers, there are no salesmen, each one of them is having a small tag. There is a magnetic label attached to it. So when you pick up those items and you, without paying, you go across, then what happens? There is a computer bar. There is a laser there, and it rings out an alarm that you are walking out. That's exactly happened, I think, to one of our sports persons. I don't remember if it was Kapil Dev or somebody. He had gone to London to play some match. So he went to a store, he picked up a pair of socks, and he walked out of the store. What happened? He thought nobody knows about it. The socks were in his pocket, he didn't pay. And suddenly, when he crossed that bar, there was an alarm ringing up in the nearest police station, and he was arrested. So this is kind of electronic controls which come to help us gear up our systems. But sometimes, that systems also can be sort of collapsed. You can play with the system. You can manipulate. And that's why your name becomes a hacker.
Yeah, true.
Sir, there is one question.
I think hackers are paid much more than the software developers.
True, sir. True.
Sir, there is one question. There is one question. Question from Harpreet Kaur. What is the level of system auditor risk in the system audit of organization? Could you please throw some light on it?
Could you repeat the question? I didn't.
What is the level of system auditor risk in the system audit of an organization? What is the level of system auditor risk?
Whose risk? The organization is not at risk.
Auditor's risk. I mean,
What is the level of system auditor risk in the system audit of an organization?
This question is not.
The question is not clear. So please, Harpreet, please ask the full question. What is your mean?
She should elaborate. Give an example. Give an example.
Yeah. So one query from the Rohan Trivedi. It is advisable to do CISA starting practice in system audit?
Yes, why not? It is a very good opportunity as long as you are conversant with the areas of systems audit and you understand the needs of the client.
Okay.
Here the understanding the need of the client is more important. After all, a systems auditor is like going to diagnose. So when a patient walks to a doctor's clinic, the doctor listens to him. The doctor doesn't talk. The doctor first listens to the patient, and after listening, then he tries to diagnose it. That look, your such and such system is not working. So similarly, if you have just started your practice, it is a wonderful idea that you can open systems because that is, I don't know what is going to happen tomorrow. Sometimes statutory audits are being abolished. I keep reading in the media. So what will the statutory auditors do if the statutory audits get abolished? Then they need systems audit as after all, kahin se to we have to work and function.
Sir, to add upon this question, just for my knowledge, let's say companies are using old traditional softwares and they have not shifted to the ERP system and having a huge volume. I have not done a system audit, I have done a financial audit, but while doing my financial auditing and checking the internal controls, it becomes visible that vouchers are alterable or deletable or addition.
Yes.
Still, as a system audit, I do have a responsibility for reporting this thing, but while doing the financial audit, whether I would be stepping into the shoes of system auditor or still as a financial auditor, I also report these kind of anomalies I have found.
You as a financial auditor, it is your statutory right to point out that you're not happy. And let me tell you, your unhappiness is going to provoke the management to carry out a systems audit. But to stretch your role from financial audit to a systems audit will be a bit too much. Because I read out the paragraph from the Companies Act audit report If you remember in the beginning, I read out that sentence from the statutory report under the Companies Act. There I have reacted vehemently to explain and elaborate that the statutory auditor's function as a role cannot be stretched to include systems audit.
But sir, won't it form the part of internal checks when I reporting in a CARO?
Yes, why not? And under CARO, you can say that there is the internal audit is not commensurate with the size and the nature or the purpose. There's a prescribed language given. You can give negative reports. Now, once you give the negative reports, it will raise lot of hue and cry in the board meeting. Like I started my lecture with the board meeting. I'm sitting in a board meeting. The top management. This lecture which we have discussed today is from the top management perspective. We are looking at the systems audit. So therefore, in the action taken report, out of if somebody is pointed out something, then the action taken report, the systems auditor is born. The function of systems auditor is born. But irony stands is that you have pointed out the defect in the system, but you are a statutory auditor. You cannot become a systems auditor. You know why? Section 144 of the Companies Act says that you cannot be appointed for these kind of activities. That's why you have Mr. Rohan Trivedi coming in to do the systems audit of that company where you have pointed out the mistakes.
It's a double-edged sword in that case, sir.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Thank you, sir. With my gratitude, sir.
Has that lady drafted the question that Harpreet Kaur? Harpreet Kaur was giving the question again.
Just a moment. I'm just checking.
Any reaction from her?
What is the there is no reaction from her. So, sir, we are running out of time. So we are close to end our session. So I would like to request Varun Kumar, the secretary of the Bhatinda branch of NIRC of the ICAI, for their vote of thanks to our eminent speaker and on behalf of CMA Committee of Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. So I welcome Varun Kumar for the vote of thanks for today's virtual CPE meeting.
Thanks, CAB Soni ji. Dear friends, I have been assigned duty to give vote of thanks. What I feel, what have been said and heard today cannot be thanked by words, and it is only gratitude we can feel towards CA Paramjit Khanna ji, whose knowledge has showered on us. Sir, your words and deliberation had been so lively that we reached to new level of thinking for system audit and fresh view of top management perspective. Especially what you focused as system audit is self-driven and conscious-driven, and basic philosophy doesn't change whatever we audit. Then I would like to thank Dr. Binay Kumar for keynote address, who underlined the importance constant updating and now in era one need to exist with system or perish. Then I would like to thank CMA Committee of ICAI for making this event happening, and to CA Gyanji and CA Miji for long preparation and providing this opportunity to learn from members who are at pinnacle of learning. Last but not the least, I would like to thank this esteemed gathering for sparing out time for this VCM and CA BJG moderator for wonderful traveling us to the program. Thank you all.
Khanna sir, please accept our gratitude for this wonderful deliberation, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you to all the participants, and thank you Bhatinda branch of the NIRC of ICAI, and thank you CMA Committee of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India for this wonderful program to be hosted. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ji. Thank you.